Mic check. Hello and welcome. Sorry, I had to pop it, cheese it in there. Welcome to the live stream of version here. The announcements for my online and in-person students here in week 16. I've got the schedule up there as we look into the final week of the semester. And the final exam will be published here just a day or so away. So looking at the final exam and practical, which will be published starting tomorrow, Thursday, December the 7th. And it will cover chapters 12, chapters 13, and chapters 14. Remember that you have a reading assessment associated with chapter 15, the autonomic nervous system. And so what we're looking at here is the week 16, the last chapters here as we get into the semester, ladies and gentlemen. And so I did get an email recently, and I wanted to go over some of the questions that were asked here in this email. So if you give me a second, and I will pull it up, and I'll go over those questions that were asked to me. I'm going to open up some slides too as well. But related to the nervous system, related to homeostasis of the nervous system. Let's take a look here. And there's the And so here are the questions here that have been asked in terms of like, and you know what, I might just put this one up first here because it is a little bit more related to, they're all kind of congruent here. But the first question relates to what is the term ganglion? Could you explain it in simple terms? What is the type of ganglion that contains neurons that control homeostatic mechanisms of the body? And which ganglion is responsible for cutaneous sensation of the face? So let's kind of take a look here at what a ganglion is. I'm going to record this real fast. So what does the term ganglion mean? And so what type of ganglion actually contain neurons, control homeostatic mechanisms of the body, and which ganglion is responsible for cutaneous sensation of the face? That are the ones I'll go over first. But hold on a sec here. I'll just kind of reiterate as I do this here. to do a quick announcement here right quick. Let me see if I can't pop up a couple of things as I do that. Opening it up. All right, so I'm going to record this a little bit, my announcements for my online and in-person students as we go right here. Welcome to the final week, ladies and gentlemen, of my anatomy and physiology course here at Arizona Western College with your professor, Dr. Sean Clavell. And here we are, December the 7th, today's the 6th, but we're going into the 7th here where we're going to look at our final and practical. Again, this is going to cover chapters 12, 13, and 14. Chapter 15 here has been assessed in a different capacity. You've got a reading quiz, which I encourage you to take at your earliest convenience for chapter 15. And so, as you can imagine, we are preparing for what we'll call the final exam, the final assessment of the semester. It is exam number 6. It will begin on December the 7th. The practical component will be due on December the 10th. It will cover chapters It'll cover chapters 12, 13, and 14, 75 multiple choice questions, 1 point each, 90 minutes for the multiple choice portion of it, lecture component of it, if you will. And then the practical problem of it will be the practical part of it will be 50 questions, and let me kind of fix this as we go here. It'll be parts of the, so parts of a neuron, types of neurons are going to be included into the practical here. You can see there that it's 50 points, 1.5 points each. Does include some marking for spelling as well. Types of a neuron, parts of the brain are going to be a big one, both the functional and structural components of that when I talk to the parts of the brain. So functional, meaning like the primary motor cortex or the primary somatosensory cortex. Functional and structural, as well as the precentral gyrus or the postcentral gyrus, right? So parts of the brain, another part here that, let me go back here. Another part here is the parts of the spinal cord, right? So parts of a neuron, types of neurons, that's kind of the unipolar, bipolar, and multipolar. The parts of the brain, both functional and structural, the primary auditory cortex, the primary visual cortex, Broca's and Wernicke's area, primary motor cortex, primary somatosensory cortex, all of those areas, as well as the different lobes, right? And then the parts of the spinal cord as well. So those are going to be the main things that we'll be looking at here in our assessment. And so, as well, I'll encourage you guys that remember that the December the 10th, so that Sunday, is going to be the last opportunity for you guys to turn in any assignments that might be pending. So you can, again, as I've mentioned here, you can turn any assignments in. I'll give you the student view here of my Canvas page. Right, you can see that you can take any of these. They're all kind of available until the 10th. Right, available until the 10th. And so the idea here is that you may get a little bit of a knock for it being late, but it's still worth obtaining the credit for. So my Canvas is all the assignments are gonna close down here on Sunday the 10th, and so that'll be the last thing, and then I'll spend the rest of the couple of days grading, and I'll post my grades by the end of finals week. And with that in mind, I'd like to thank all of you in personally or online, virtually here, for a great semester. I hope that you've all learned something as it relates to the human body and movement. And I encourage you to continue this academic endeavor in the human anatomy and physiology in courses like Anatomy and Physiology 2, Pathophysiology, Exercise Physiology, Biomechanics. These are all really kind of cool and interesting things related to human anatomy, physiology, and movement science or exercise science. So again, it's been a pleasure having each of you. I thank you all for your time, and I wish you the best. I look to hear from you guys in the future about your accomplishments, both academically and professionally. Okay, so that was the announcement. Now, I'd like to go over a few questions here as it relates to a student that sent an email to me here, and so we're gonna go over that part now. And so let me record this. Let me find my other slides. The slides that I want to use for this questions are probably going to be I'm gonna open up one more window here. I think this is where I want to be though. Okay. Okay. So here we go. Get a drink of water. And I am going to start recording. Okay, so I got a interesting email from a student here who had a couple of questions regarding, as you can see him up here, regarding ganglion, the term ganglion, and really kind of a couple of questions regarding kind of some different specific ganglionic structures. And so the term ganglion is kind of confusing. Could you please use that in simple terms? So the term ganglion refers to a collection of cell bodies. This is a classic definition for it, is a collection of cell bodies in the peripheral nervous system. So ganglion itself, let me try this here. Put a bullet point here. The ganglion is a collection of cell bodies in the peripheral nervous system, and a collection of cell bodies in the central nervous system is referred to as a nuclei. So you've got these two different terms that we should start to get familiar with. In the CNS, right? And so what is this cell bodies, right? That's kind of one of the questions. What are these cell bodies? These cell bodies are gray matter. Gray matter is the depot, or the area where information is transferred from one area to another. So again, that can occur in the ganglion, in the peripheral nervous system, or in the central nervous system, where they'll be called nuclei. And so I have a picture here. We'll kind of pop that up here to kind of help us get a description. And so this is a vertebrae. I'm getting a marker for us. Okay. And so this is, vertebrae. Here's your spinal cord. This is the spinal cord right there. You can see there's the spine. Actually, let me do it this way, right? I'll highlight it this way. There's the spinal cord, just like that. So you can see the spinal cord there. It goes all the way down into the vertebral column here. There's the body of the vertebrae. This is the body of the T8 vertebrae specifically. So then there's ribs that come around there. Obviously, you can see there's the rib that comes around there. Okay, spinal cord. Let's go from the spinal cord and to the peripheral nervous system here. Once we leave the intervertebral foramen, that's this structure right here that I'm circling, there's a dorsal root ganglion. This is a group of cell bodies inside of the peripheral nervous system, outside of the spinal cord. And so the information will travel in here, and it will synapse kind of down in towards the dorsal root ganglion and continue on towards the axon, towards the spinal cord. That is a ganglion. Now you also have gray matter. Oh, let me go back here. You also have gray matter inside of the spinal cord itself, inside of the peripheral nervous system. That would be right here. Let's make it. Here we go. Draw. Okay, that's here, right? So this, I'm just color the whole thing in blue. So that is the gray matter in the spinal cord. That's the nuclei. So in the peripheral nervous system, it's ganglion. So there's the dorsal root ganglion. That's one specific one. And then it goes down. It's right here. The dorsal root ganglion is sensory, right? We've been talking about the component of the dorsal root being sensory. And so what you have is the dorsal root ganglion there. That is a specific group of cell bodies located outside of the spinal cord. Now I'm going to clear this, and I will give us the kind of the description of it, or a there's one right there, right? So there's the spinal cord here. So we'll kind of focus primarily on this component here, right? So you've got the so you've got the dorsal root ganglion. That's the, see, there's the unipolar cell body that was located there. This is the axon here. The dendrites on this side. Just gonna put dendrite. I'm just gonna put den there. So the dendrite information will travel here. And so there's the dorsal root ganglion, that collection of cell bodies outside of the spinal cord, and then they will synapse with other interneurons, right, with their cell bodies in the gray matter of the spinal cord. Those are called nuclei. And so that is the term ganglion. What's another ganglion? Another ganglion is related to the autonomic nervous system in your visceral organs, the paravertebral ganglion. So in this situation, what happens is information leaves out, either visceral or sensory, but we're going to think sensory in this case, motor in this case, excuse me, will leave out here, and it synapses on cell bodies in the that are adjacent to or parallel to the vertebral column itself. Now, this information can then send signals down or up to our visceral organs that allows for homeostatic balance of the visceral organs or involuntary muscle functions and actions. And so the idea here is that, let's see here. I'm opening up another set of slides. Let's go with that one. And so the idea is that specifically here, you can see that they leave and they synapse at different regions and communicate with different types of information. They take that information. So at the cell body, at the gray matter, at the ganglion, that information is then decided at which region it is going to go up or down or communicate with. So in the somatic nervous system, the ganglion are related to the sensory input. In the autonomic nervous system, we see these ganglion a lot more related to, I'm going to close this just a little bit. We see these ganglion related to different structures put it up at the top here, and allowing the signal to go up and down the chain. And whether it's the sympathetic or the parasympathetic nervous system, you'll see that the cell bodies right here, right? So in the parasympathetic nervous system, you can see that there's a long pre-ganglionic neuron, and this is the post-ganglion. So right here, this is the, let's identify this here. So the ganglion, or the cell body, is right here and right here. So in the sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight response, right? Your fight or flight response, there's a very short preganglionic neuron and then a long postganglionic neuron. So what you'll see is that the neuron will go all the way to a preganglionic neuron and then maybe then to its target organ. Where the other component here is the parasympathetic nervous system, which has a very long preganglionic neuron and a very, so there's the ganglion, so the very long preganglionic neuron and a very short postganglionic neuron. So what happens here is that the ganglion, this secondary neuron here, is very close to the effector organs, right? Your stomach, your what do I want to say? Yeah, your stomach, your digestive tract, your pupillary muscles related to the eye, right? Here, right? So they have a very long, so it goes very long, almost to the area of the salivary glands, the eye, the heart. It goes all the way to it, and then has one more neuron there, but doesn't, and then connects with it. And the other one here has a very short, which goes to the paravertebral, right? It has a very short preganglionic, so boop to the paravertebral, and then branches out to the effector organs. So after all that, to say the term ganglion, right? Ganglion are structures in the peripheral nervous system. There's the dorsal root ganglion. There is the parasympathetic ganglion. The dorsal root ganglion is the cell body's collections of the sensory neurons that goes through the dorsal root. And the paravertebral sympathetic ganglion are the ganglion located parallel to the vertebral column, and they are related to the autonomic nervous system, specifically the sympathetic chain. What type of ganglion contains neurons that control homeostatic mechanisms of the body? So the types of ganglion that contain neurons that control homeostatic mechanisms of the body. This could be answered in a number of different ways if we're thinking about it there. So control homeostatic mechanisms. So the homeostatic mechanism is a negative feedback mechanism. There's the sensory component, and so the ganglion related to the sensory component of the nervous system would be the dorsal root ganglion. Right, that would be the dorsal root ganglion. And the ganglion related to the autonomic nervous system, right, your flight or flight response, the sympathetic ganglion. So which one is related to the homeostatic? Well, either one of these might be a correct answer if I'm thinking about it like that, right? Dorsal root ganglion helps to control the sensory information coming in through the periphery. The paravertebral ganglion relay information to prepare us for a fight or flight response. Both necessary for maintain homeostasis, right? Which ganglion is responsible for cutaneous sensations of the face? And so the question here is a question related to the more so the cranial nerves. So the cranial nerves are also right. Cranial nerves and spinal nerves are part of the peripheral nervous system. And so we kind of already talked about spinal nerves, right? The dorsal root ganglion, as well as the parasympathetic, paravertebral sympathetic, the paravertebral sympathetic ganglionic chain. And so that's kind of the spinal nerves component of it. The cranial nerve component of it is related to those 12 cranial nerves that we should be familiar with. And so as I pull up a couple of slides here, what I'd say is, let's try. Let's try. Might have to try a different set here. Yep, definitely. Here we go. So let's try here as we look at some of those cranial nerves as they're related here. So I've almost gotten the slide here as we're looking at it. So in the cranial nerves, what you'll see is that there's these groupings, and I think the first one, I'm going to kind of jump to the, let's see which one this one is. That's the facial nerve. Let's find the trigeminal nerve here, because that might be, or even the vestibular ganglion, which is going to be a collection of cell bodies that are going to be located right into the eighth cranial nerve, right? And so the eighth cranial nerve is the cranial nerve related to hearing. The cochlear branch is hearing, and the vestibular branch is balance. So the question here again is asking us, which ganglion are responsible for cutaneous sensations of the face? Well, the vestibular ganglion is not. Remember, we just saw that the vestibular ganglion is, again, related to the vestibular system here. Another was the trigeminal. So the trigeminal is that of the... There's got to be a trigeminal picture here. It's the face. So it's related to the face. If I can't find it for you guys, these are the 5 branches of the facial nerve, but the trigeminal nerve here, it's cranial nerve number 5. Oh, maybe it's right here. That's why. There it is. So here's the ganglion right here related to the trigeminal nerve here. And so that is a ganglion. And so the cranial nerve number 5, the trigeminal nerve, is the nerve related to primary function, sensory and motor to the face. So sensory and motor to the face. So that might be an answer for us, right? So we'll go back to our question here. Which ganglion is responsible for cutaneous sensation? That is cutaneous or skin sensation of the face. Well, so the trigeminal nerve is on our list, right? So we'll kind of give it a... Actually, let's go back here and give it a good old-fashioned check mark. There. The next one is the geniculate, and I'm pretty sure the geniculate nuclei is in reference to the visual pathway, where we can even do the otic. I think otic might be a quick one to find here. That's related to the parasympathetic chain, and the geniculate is located on the facial nerve. So we've got the trigeminal, and the sensory ganglion of the face is the geniculate nuclei as well. So let's think here. There it is, the geniculate ganglion. The geniculate ganglion is the ganglion related to the facial nerve. And now the facial nerve is the... Oh, sorry, you see there, right? Holds the cell bodies of sensory neurons, specifically of the face. It has a sensory component, a somatic motor component, but again, I would say that that might also be related to the face, right? So the geniculate and the trigeminal ganglion, and then the otic ganglion is a parasympathetic. It's one of the 4 parasympathetic ganglion of the head or face. So let's see here if I have a slide related to that. It might take me a sec to find it. Parasympathetic, right? I said parasympathetic, yep. And so that would be right here. So the parasympathetic ganglion of the face here is the otic ganglion right there. So of those four options, the two best answers that I can see here are going to be that of the geniculate ganglion, specifically related to the facial, the face, right? So that's specifically to the face. And let me see here. So the trigeminal nuclei. Of the trigeminal nerve. Yeah. So it's part of the... Let's take a look here. Trigeminal here. Has the trigeminal ganglion. And there's the otic ganglion. There's the ciliary ganglion. Lateral cavernous sinus in the depression of the temporal bone, right? Nerve. Because there's a sensory and a motor root. Yeah, and so those would be the two that I can think of here. And then what level of the brainstem is the major input to the cerebellum? What is the major input to the cerebellum here? That would be what level? The pons, right? Like the pons is kind of the first thing that comes to mind. But let's see here if I'm missing anything. What level of the brainstem is the major input for the cerebellum? Input, okay. That might give us some information there, the input. What level of the brainstem? So the cerebellar peduncles. The cerebellar peduncles here, that might be the answer that we're looking for. So the superior cerebellar peduncle, the middle cerebellar peduncle. Here, this is the sectional view of the cerebellum, showing the arrangement of the gray and the white matter here. That is right actually here, right? And even including this portion here, which is going to be some major input there. So where's the slide that I wanted to mention here, which is I just had the cerebellum here. Sorry, guys. Oh, here we go. Let me do a little brainstem. Let's just keep going with these slides. Let's see where it takes me. Right, so missed it there, right? So components of the cerebellum, the gray matter, you get the link to the cerebellum with the midbrain, dicephalon, and the cerebrum. The middle, maybe I can zoom in for you guys. Right, the middle cerebral peduncles contain transverse fibers and carry communications between the cerebellum and the pons, and the inferior is the link to the cerebellum with the medulla oblongata and the spinal cord. So just a little extra information there. I would call it the cerebellar peduncles. Is the correct answer there. All right, so hopefully that was helpful for everybody. I do appreciate the questions, comments, and concerns. And again, I look forward to seeing some more of your responses. So thank you and take care.